Let's see. Here is the menu. Hey, it's me, your book barista, Charlotte, and today is the perfect, beautiful October fall day, and so I decided I want to give you some spooky book recommendations for this wonderful season that here in the Northern Hemisphere we're going through. I have for you 6 creepy books that I think would be perfect for October, for Halloween, for this general season of our lives, and I paired them with a pumpkin spice oat milk latte, which is classic, of course. Let's get to the books. So the first book that I have for you is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, of course, the classic queen of mystery. I think mysteries in general are kind of the perfect creepy but not too horrifying and very engaging type of book. Even if you haven't read And Then There Were None or any of Agatha Christie's books, I'm sure you've come across her premise. The idea of an isolated group of people on an island or in a haunted house of some sort where they're slowly picked off one by a killer who is living amongst them. From And Then There Were None, I feel like there have been so many different renditions of this same trope, and I absolutely love it, and I think it's like the perfect way to bring in this season. Despite this novel being written so many years ago, it still is really engaging for even contemporary audiences, which I find really cool. If you don't know what And Then There Were None is about, it's about a group of people who are invited to a dinner party by someone that they don't really know. And so this party is located on a house in this rocky island. Once they're there, they realize that they've been all brought there for a particular reason. Throughout the course of the book, you find out each of the characters' reasons for being there in the first place and why the killer has brought them there. The next book I have is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. This is one of my all-time favorite books, just not even within the horror genre, but just in general. This novel is actually a story collection, and every single story holds its own. Oftentimes with short story collections, there are usually a few stories that I don't really love, but in this one I honestly think all of them are incredible. All of these stories kind of center around the theme of women and their bodies and the lack of agency that they have with their bodies in one way or another. There's also a lot about queerness in general. First short story is actually called The Husband Stitch, and it's a bit of a parody of the story of the Green Ribbon. I don't remember the exact title of it, but it was a short story in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is actually a children's book that I think is quite popular, at least in America. I remember reading it as a kid, and so reading this version of it I think hit so much harder because of my own familiarity with the original story already. Machado has a really impeccable way of being able to write something that's really creepy and eerie and unsettling while also doing it in a really beautiful lyrical way. If you're a fan of just weird stories, this one is definitely for you. If you're a fan of feminist themes, this one is also for you. There's a squirrel over there too. The next book I want to recommend is also by Carmen Maria Machado. It's called In the Low, Low Woods. It's a graphic novel about these 2 girls who are both queer and they're best friends, I believe. Basically, something strange is happening in their town, and they're both in high school trying to navigate that while also navigating the supernatural things that are happening in their town. And it just feels very Stranger Things plus Her Body and Other Parties. It was really, honestly, kind of heartwarming at the same time that it was beautifully drawn and illustrated. I think Machado, in her usual style, is just so good at tugging heartstrings and being almost romantic in a sense without leaning too much into the sentimentality of things. And because this is about 2 young girls who are discovering so much about themselves as well as the world around them, it brings a certain level of agency to these young characters. The next book is Pen Pal by Dathan R. Bach. I talked about this novel in a previous video actually when I first read it, but just to recap again, Pen Pal is actually a novel that originated on Reddit, the No Sleep forum, which is essentially a forum where people share their original scary short stories in a serialized format. You actually definitely get a sense of that origin in the novel itself. But I think for a novel that was written on Reddit, especially, this is really well done. So in Pen Pal, we follow the main character who is kind of trying to reconstruct the memories of his childhood and his adolescence. So he's thinking back onto these fragments of time that he can't really quite piece together. And this book is essentially his attempt at piecing together what happened to him as a kid. And it all begins with a kindergarten project where all the kids in the class have to send out letters to an anonymous pen pal friend letter person. As you can expect, a lot of creepy things begin to happen to this narrator after that project. The next book is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno, which I had read actually this year, and it's quickly become one of my favorites, if not of this year, then actually of all time. This Thing Between Us follows the narrator who's just lost his wife. She's just recently died, and the first scene that we find him in is him trying to grapple with this grief and trying to look back on the events that happened and the events that will happen. This novel tries to deal with a lot of different themes, such as technology and cosmic horror, existentialism. There's a little bit of every element and trope of horror in this book itself. There's the supernatural, there's confronting death and life, and there's also confronting politics to an extent as well. And I think this book really left me feeling very empty inside, but in a good way. It made me think a lot. And I think any book that's able to both scare you and make you laugh, make you cry, and also leave you feeling really profoundly affected by it is one that's the perfect kind of novel, because it takes a lot to be able to wield your writing in such a way that you're able to cause such an effective response in all of these different ways. My final book for you is Whisper by Chang Yu Ko. It's a Taiwanese translated novel, and this is the only one of this list that I actually haven't personally read yet, but I plan to very soon. But the premise sounds incredible. In Whisper, our main character is a taxi driver. We find out very early on that there are a string of deaths happening in this Taiwanese town where every single victim hears a certain voice right before they die. And this voice comes in the form of different things for each victim. For some people, they hear a Taiwanese song. Other people, they hear someone calling for help. People hear dead loved ones. So the narrator, the taxi driver, his wife has become one of these victims. And so he's trying to solve this murder. The novel also contends with the issues of Aboriginal murders that happen in Taiwan. I think Taiwan's past, Taiwan's history, and its political relation to the world is something that's really deeply excavated in this book, which is why I'm really drawn to reading this as someone who is Taiwanese myself. And I think doing that through the avenue of horror is especially compelling, because horror is a genre that can allow you to really explore the scary parts of the world and of politics and of humanity in a way that no other genre is really able to hit at quite in the same way and affect the reader and the audience in quite the same way. That's all the books that I have for you today. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you enjoy the pumpkin spice latte. And I hope you find some time this month or in the next month to pick up a really spooky book or two, find a nice spot to go picnic in, and enjoy.